to class. All right, I've brought just a bag of rocks
Yeah.
and magic markers and said, all right, so what is it that you want to do? Right. I want to eat healthy or more vegetables, right? Write it on this rock, set this rock on your desk, and it serves as a visual reminder of this habit that you want to create.
Well, I'd have been against it, but they're back. Mark and Mike. It doesn't take a genius.
Ramsey!
Marshall, I have in my hand something. Would you like to know what it is?
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, man. The life of Samuel Johnson.
That's
It
right.
it looks like it was written like the day after he passed away. it's it's an ancient tome. Yeah.
It was written by a friend, James Boswell. It is the reason I'm holding it is because it is regarded as perhaps the greatest biography ever written in the English language.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
better than the one on Millard Fillmore?
well, I mean, there's a lot to be said about what you said, but I'm going to focus on what I said. Uh, hey, you and I pretty much don't know who Samuel Johnson is, Dr. Johnson, as he's known in a lot of literary circles, but you actually do know of him. A lot of quotes that he brought to the table, and some of them have been paraphrased over the years, but one is patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel.
Oh, right,
Right. That was him. He's the guy that first said a version of truth is the first casualty in war.
Mm.
He gets that one.
Wow.
Also said courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees all others. He didn't say that exactly. He said it in more 1700s language, but a lot of things that he's said that are just phenomenally useful and clever quotes. I'm going to give you one of those in just a second that I want to do an episode about, but I have to also share the other reason that you might know about Dr. Johnson.
Ooh, okay.
This is what he looked like.
Whoa. Whew.
That is, I mean, so many memes have that face coming at you. I'll show you.
Oh, thanks for taking it down.
Yeah. Well, I got one more I got to share.
No, I'm good.
He's just got this face that just says, "Ugh, I don't understand you. I'm disgusted by you." This one says, "When you are the writer of the first English dictionary, which he was, and a great scholar, but somehow became a meme." That's Dr. Johnson's life apparently. So,
oh yeah,
but
yeah. He kind of looks like John Candy ate a lemon. For those of you on the podcast,
wearing a wig.
Yeah, wearing a powdered wig. John Candy wearing a powdered wig, eating a lemon. Yeah, just put that in your head and marinate on that a little bit.
That's very fair.
Now I was familiar with his cousins who started the cleaning business, Johnson and Johnson.
I see where you're going with that. Again, moving past Millard Fillmore, moving past Johnson and Johnson.
Fine.
I should say this before we make fun of him too much. He had a illness as a child, and possibly that caused a condition later in life. But basically, he's been diagnosed in our day. I mean, they didn't have this diagnosis at the time, but he probably had Tourette's, and so he had a lot of tics, a lot of facial things that he did. A lot of energy sort of, jumping out of his body. I think I've read that he like did little noises, that he would make. But again, a learned man of letters.
Oh yeah. Well, you can tell he's incredibly smart because he obviously didn't get by on his looks.
No, so not at all.
You're like, this guy must be bringing some superior intellectual power to the world.
Yes, and came from a lot of poverty. I mean, so he earned what he got in the world. I just want to share this one quote with you because I think it applies to so many things that you and I have have talked about over the years. So I'll be curious to see where this conversation goes. It may be kind of brief, but here's the quote, and it's in this paragraph where he's talking about it's so hard to become a writer. People don't have time to read. They've got other things they're passionate about. They don't have time for you. They ignore new teaching because they don't want to focus on it. And in the course of that whole paragraph, he says this: men more frequently require to be reminded than informed. I'll say it one more time. Men more frequently require to be reminded than informed.
Oh,
I feel like that applies to about 20,000 things that you and I have talked about over the years.
oh, yeah, yeah. It's the basis for our entire coaching philosophy. Right, where
All of it.
Yeah, yeah. The idea of yell and tell at one end of the continuum versus ask and involve.
Yep.
Right. It could be right if you were to build the foundation of that model, it would be this quote: people need to be reminded more often than they need to be instructed.
Yeah.
And and there's research out there, right, tells us that when you go to coach somebody, about 90% of the time they already know what they did wrong and what needs to change.
Right.
So it's not when we talk about skill and will, right? It's not a skill thing. They don't need a new skill. They just need to find the will to do what they know needs to be done.
I know you're right because of two things that so often happen after one of our interventions. I'll call it that. And it may be a one-on-one coaching, or it may be, a training session where we do a workshop and present some nuggets. First off, those nuggets are not new. I'll just go ahead and say that, right? Ecclesiastes says there is nothing new under the sun, and it is so true. It is absolutely true. We have brought nothing novel and innovative to the table other than perhaps how we package it, right? And how we get them to make use of it. But it's all stuff from others in the past. We stand on the shoulders of giants, so we're not bringing anything new to the table. But at the end of our sessions, we'll ask a couple questions typically. One of those questions is, what was most useful for you today? And what would you say is the percentage, Mike, of the number of people who say, it was just a good reminder, right? I used to be really offended by that because I was like, so nothing caught him as really insightful. Gosh, man, we failed. We didn't do something strong enough that he caught a new, fresh insight. But the more I've realized, it's like, no, let's be humble about this. It's not about us. We're an excuse for them to have a conversation, sometimes with themselves, about stuff they already know. And so they've had a good reminder, and that was the point of us showing up that day. Is that fair?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. We've often told people we're in the we used to business.
That's right.
Because we'll have one of our what'd you call it? What'd you call it? You didn't say interactions. It was interventions.
Interventions. Yeah,
We'll have one of our interventions, and so often it turns into, man, that's we used to do that. I used to sit down with my people. We used to have a great onboarding process. We used to, and so it was in there, right? We actually executed it previously, but somehow I call it evaporation. It had evaporated. We didn't consciously. Nobody can pick the day where we stopped doing it. When did you stop coaching your people? Well, I was off for a week when I was out sick, and then we came back, and then a couple of people were out, and then so I did some, and it evaporated. Right? It slowly went away. So there was no conscious decision to stop doing something. It evaporated, and then we serve as the reminder to go, hey, that was really cool, and it was effective. What are the prospects of bringing it back? And then people take that as that was the golden nugget, right? That was the epiphany. It wasn't the new learning, it was that I need to put something back.
So it's so funny because of the layers of this, right? We come in and remind them about something they used to do, right? Some habit. That habit typically is to remind them to do a variety of things, right? Whether it's like, a checklist on a sales process or an inspection sheet that we always go through to make sure we've covered all of our bases. I mean, pilots go through a pre-flight checklist that's kind of a big deal. Everybody else has some version of that in their own work too. I'm amazed by how often me, the guy who's paid to remind people, has to remind myself to sit down and do reminders, right? I do a regular planning meeting. Sometimes I fall off the wagon and don't do them for a while because I'm really busy, right?
Mhm.
And I always regret it because, gosh, doggone it, I need to be reminded of what's the most important thing, and those are the things I need to be getting on my calendar. Oh, by the way, the calendar is to remind me, oh, it's Tuesday. I need to be doing XYZ for my budget or cover some task that I'm supposed to be doing. I need to write XYZ. I need to follow up with so and so. It's almost like everything is a reminder.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I get a big kick out of when we're teaching a class that we've taught previously.
Yeah.
And so you drag the materials out and you're reviewing them and you're like, oh man, I've gotten away from this
Right.
myself. Yeah, yeah,
We're
personally.
reminding ourselves
Yeah,
as we remind.
I'm so glad I'm looking at this material again because yeah, I have strayed. I needed to be reminded,
Right.
right, that this was something that I needed to be doing.
I think that's perfect. So let's talk about practical applications of this, and I think we're dancing around quite a few, um, but in employee engagement would perhaps be one area, um, and different companies do this different ways. But if you've got a mission statement, a vision statement, a list of values, you might even have them on the wall as a reminder.
Mhm.
But one way that you can really make this something that's not instructional and I'm telling you what to do, but instead I'm just reminding you is I can start incorporating those into staff meetings. So
Mhm.
we've seen this done a number of different ways, and one way that I really like is when we have a list of values or a list of phrases in our vision statement or what have you, and we take them one at a time, one per staff meeting, and do that for eternity. And what you do is something new each time, right? Because I don't know, I'm going to make something up. Transparency. It's one of our values here. Uh, Maybe you have a meeting where you say, guys, what does transparency mean to you? What does that look like here? Why is it important? Okay, that's a nice little reminder, right? You could probably the next time around that you get back to talking about transparency at a future staff meeting months away, you might even come and say, I heard a good story about how Joe Bob really demonstrated the value of transparency. Joe Bob, could you tell your story?
Mhm.
And now you've turned the meeting over to Joe Bob, and Joe Bob's going to explain how he really embodied and lived out transparency, and the value becomes more real. We're just being reminded again of something that we were reminded of, maybe a few weeks ago, a few months ago, and we're going to constantly need that reminder because there will always be this temptation for evaporation, like you said, to happen. So
Mhm.
there's a very practical example is incorporate this into your staff meetings.
Oh yeah, yeah. The idea of storytelling uh,
Yeah,
to reinforce and remind, right, the ideas that we hold dear, and people they'll forget the value, but they will remember the story,
right.
and they go, okay, that illustrates us living it. And I've even done the opposite.
Mm.
Right, let's share a story of us not living the value of transparency,
Oh, yeah,
and where we got off, we needed to be reminded. And sometimes, yeah, let's talk about where we didn't live up to that. And and that illustrates us not operating in our best, or not operating in alignment with what we espouse, we value, we believe.
yeah. I love that, and it's of course it's like you said, the story lasts longer. It lasts longer as a reminder, right? Like you're just
Yep.
Anyway, keep using that word, but
No,
um,
that's fantastic.
yeah. So there's an example is sort of how you incorporate that into a staff meeting if you have some sort of values statement or what have you. Um, do you want to talk about what it looks like to do this in coaching a little more directly? Because we've done a podcast episode about this of 131, and that in and of itself is a form of reminding, I think.
Hmm. Oh yeah, the idea that somebody approaches you with an issue, and they're trying to, the story is illustrated by a monkey. They approach you with an issue in the form of a monkey. They're trying to give you their monkey, and ultimately, if you accept too many monkeys, you own a circus. So the idea is to empower your people, get them to think critically, and get them to keep their monkey. And so the 131, right, you ask them to clarify the issue. All right, so what's the real problem here for you? What's your goal? What are you trying to achieve here? And then that's the one, right? So we narrow it down to what is the one thing that you're trying to do, solve, get rid of, and then ask for, right? And that's the key, right? Ask for, all right. So what three things have you done, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not me, right? The opposite of this, the instruction part would be if I took the approach of, all right, so that's your problem. Here's three things you could do. No, I want them to dig deep and be reminded that they have the ability to solve these problems. And so come up with, what three things could you do? All right, those three are neat. Maybe we brainstorm a couple more. And then I ask them, all right, so which one of those are you going to move forward with?
Yeah.
And so the uncovering of the action items that are within the scope of their control, which are probably things they've previously done to solve similar problems, is the reminder part, and then the commitment is the ask for, which one of those are most attractive to you think will have the biggest impact, solve your problem, and when you're going to get started, and they're off and running.
In the last episode, we talked about the circle of influence, and it's like the 131 technique is really just a reminder that you need to stay in the circle of influence, right? Stay proactive. Another example might be something near and dear to your heart, gamification and the use of scoreboards. That I would argue is a reminder in and of itself, and it's a reminder of this is what's most important for us to be doing on a daily basis. I don't know if that's
Oh,
too broad of a statement, but
no, it's absolutely, yeah. So I've got this physical scoreboard on the wall, whiteboard, whatever, and it's a thermometer, it's stars, boxes, whatever, and I'm filling it in, and at a glance, the scoreboard tells me what's the goal, what's the time frame for that goal, how have we made progress, right? What progress have we made? What remains to be done, right? What's the gap?
yeah,
And so, and I always tell managers, right? We always talk about this with managers. We're doing this for the team members, right? So the team members have instant access to the information. They can see progress towards the goal. They can see how their behaviors influence, us achieving the goal. And then I always tell the managers at the end, but mostly the scoreboard is for you to remind you of what you said you wanted to focus on,
yep,
because the manager is just inundated with priorities and fires and different competing ideas about what they should or shouldn't be working on, and they go a couple of weeks and they forget that, oh yeah, this was the thing that I knew if we focused on would make the biggest impact, but I've lost sight of it myself. So the scoreboard is the reminder for the manager to talk
yeah.
about this, to stay focused on this, to update this, to build training around this, to have coaching around this. So yeah, you need that visible reminder to stay focused on the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah. There's I'm gonna take that a slightly different direction because I'm just thinking about the people that don't necessarily know what they want to focus on. They do need to be perhaps to some level instructed on that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Victorian era, there was a famous teacher named Charlotte Mason. A lot of people, a lot of schools, and a lot of homeschoolers use her material. She's sort of had a renaissance in the last, I don't know, 20 years. of her methods, and it involved a lot of different things. But one of the expressions she had was laying down the rails, laying down the rails, and it's just the idea of habit formation, right? With kids, you're laying down the rails. They don't totally understand why you would want to memorize your multiplication tables. Uh, and they do need a little instruction, but at some point it's like they just need reminders that this is what we do. We get to where we can spit these back out at a moment's notice and not have to think about them. That's a habit, right? And so you can actually have habit formation before you even have the understanding of why. You can have habit formation before you know the importance of the thing you're doing. And it kind of makes me think a little bit of how easy we have it now with atomic habits and the kinds of things that have been talked about in that book about cues. So I don't know, that may be a poor way to set it up, but do you want to talk a little bit about habit formation and sort of what we've all gotten out of atomic habits and how it applies in modern brain science that we can set some habits by reminding ourselves each time that there's a thing that we want to do.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The wonderful book, I believe it's James Clear, and James talks about it. Right, the research shows in order to have a habit, you need three things. You need a cue, a visible cue. You need to do the thing, and you need a reward. And so the way I took it when I first read the book was I wanted to get into the habit of running, and so
Yeah,
I needed a visual cue. So my visual cue was the night before I went to bed, I would take my running shoes, my shorts, my t-shirt, and I'd put all that stuff together and I'd sit it in the middle of the living room. And so, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, what do I got to do today? And then you trip over your shoes and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a runner. Running. That was the thing I said I wanted there. Yeah. So you put on your shoes and you go for a little run. And
right.
so, but you had to have that visual reminder, right? And we've had guys. I've brought to class. Right, I've brought just a bag of rocks
Yeah,
and magic markers and said, all right, so what is it that you want to do? Right. I want to eat healthy or more vegetables, right? Write it on this rock, set this rock on your desk, and it serves as a visual reminder of this habit that you want to create. So you got the visual cue, you do the thing, and then there has to be some sort of reward. Sometimes the reward is just as simple as saying, good job, dude.
right.
Just thanking yourself for doing the behavior that's moving you forward. Sometimes it could be, all right, I'm going to have treat myself to something, a little dessert or something like that. And then I do this often enough. And at some point, once it's a habit, and a habit is defined as a behavior you do unconsciously.
Yeah.
And so, like for most people, brushing their teeth is a habit. If you ask people right now and say, all right, it's middle of the day, do you remember brushing your teeth? No, but I know I did it, but I can't
Right.
recall doing it. That's how
Right.
you know it's a habit, right? You unconsciously do this thing because it's just wired into your brain now, but you don't have to consciously remind yourself to do the thing. So once it becomes a habit, then I can eliminate the visual cue.
And this is what makes it so tough sometimes because somebody who does it unconsciously struggles to teach it to new folks, right? Like, I don't know, I just do it, right?
Yeah, you just do the
Whatever that
thing.
thing
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
But
You just go work out. That's what you do.
but I'm facing that at home a lot because I've got a youngster who's learning to floss, and it's a conscious effort. It is a conscious effort, and having to think through what I do next and having to remember to do it every night, right? We're still reminding them that they need to
Mhm.
floss.
So
Um,
yeah, you've got to have a picture of Mr. Flossy right on the mirror. You've got to have the floss sitting out,
the
right, in a
floss is sitting out. That's
prominent
exactly right.
place, right? You got to have that visual thing that says, "Don't forget," right? This is what we do, and so now it's the reminder, right? No longer needs instruction, just needs a reminder.
That's right. That's right. Well, so I wanted to sort of talk that out that this is a little bit of a mindset of saying, am I doing my work today as a manager, reminding my people instead of instructing my people? It's a mindset shift. I don't know that it's harder or easier than all the telling, but I think over time, if you continue to remind instead of instruct, it does make your life easier. And
Oh,
so I wanted to leave people with that this is something that in the short term, it's probably a little bit of a like, okay, let me think about this. Have I done this in a reminding way or am I instructing?
mhm.
And it could guide a lot of behaviors, right? Helping people with habits, having scoreboards. I mean, just basically everything we've talked about. How you handle staff meetings. All of this can come back to how you coach. It can all come back to doing it from a reminding frame instead of from an instructing frame.
Oh yeah. Well, and it also ties back into the advice trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, where yeah, people, when you start a sentence with, "Let me give you some advice."
Yep.
Right there, you can almost hear like your brain shutting down, like
Yeah.
locks, like clang, lock, clang, lock.
Yep.
Like I am not going to listen to this, right?
Yep.
And so the idea that when you look at Michael Bungay Stainer's book, right, your advice is a mediocre solution.
Right.
Right, you're giving advice based upon a tiny little bit of fact and a huge amount of assumptions, and you're looking at it through your perspective.
That's right.
It's no wonder your advice sucks, right? It's just not good, right? How could it be good under those environmental conditions? So, yeah, giving advice, telling them what to do, instructions, right? All
Yep.
this stuff, right? Most of the time, people know what they need to do. We just need to have a conversation that reminds them of, oh yeah, that's where I need to be. That's what I
That's
need
it.
to be doing.
That's it. Well, we hope this episode serves as a reminder.
Guffaw.
Oh,
You're
good
killing me,
times.
dude. Oh yeah, good times. The All right. As a reminder, please stay tuned for our announcer, the mellifluous
Oh,
voice.
wait,
Oh,
wait.
wait,
I'm so sorry.
but
I
wait. There's
completely forgot.
more. A bonus.
Well, I've got to do one more teaser. Really, a couple of reminders. First off, we'd love to hear your funny reminder stories where there was a reminder in your system that you suddenly remembered, like, oh, we used to do it this way. Why have I dropped it? We'd love to hear it. Send us a comment or an email.
Mhm.
Like and subscribe, etc. The other thing is stay tuned for next week's episode. I'm going to be recording with this person on Monday, but we have an author who has a stunning story. I think it's going to be really good to close out the year. So looking forward to that.
Oh man, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, yeah. You've been teasing me with this one for a while. I'm ready.
I mean, we won't have time, and I don't want to. I don't want to say too much, but like we won't have time to even get into how crazy this story is. It's just going to be a neat episode.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh man, good stuff. Excited. Yeah, let's give it to our announcer, wrap this thing up, and hopefully, right, you have those reminders in your life that keep you on track.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, it doesn't take a genius.
That's good enough.